how long it took me to figure out the audio settings to be able to make this video. I almost didn't make it, man. Let's take a deep breath, shall we? Oh, I'm not the most technical savvy out there, so sometimes being creative, marrying the technological aspect of that becomes such a high tension marriage for me that I'm almost ready to serve divorce papers. But anyway, here we are. Yay, we made it. And this is my attempt to do a video essay. I've seen a couple of other creators doing them and I really, really enjoy them. So I figure out that this is a perfect format for me. I'm welcoming you all to this video format where we're talking about high sensitivity and its direct relationship with God. And this video is going to be divided in 2 sections. And in the first part, I'm going to be tapping into what I call the coping trope. And in the second part, we're going to be talking about strengths and the real purpose behind sensitivity or being highly sensitive. As we start, and I call it the cope trope because it's really what I see the most. Social media space is either advice or tips or tricks or whatever to keep yourself kind of still blend in and masking as a normal sensitive person, which I think they come from a benevolent place to help out other people that might be struggling with their sensitivity. However, that might be helpful at the beginning. There always comes a moment where that stops being beneficial, and then we need to continue into the empowering route because that's truly where freedom lies. The coping trope, right? Let's talk a little bit about that because if we go back, we can actually pinpoint a lot of people that spoke about sensitivity, but I'm going to bring forward the author of the High Sensitive Person book, which is Elaine Aron, and she makes a note to for us to understand that high sensitivity is obviously not a disorder, it's a trait. So it's a way that we experience reality as human beings, and it just makes us more prone to experience everything more intensely. She also points out that it is actually a survival kind of learned condition, which before you feel bummed out about that, because I know that we are very much conscious that we should step out of survival in order to thrive, there is an evolutionary perspective out of this state. Back in the day, it was the high sensitive person who would be seeked for advice when we were entering, let's say, unknown territories, because we're really good with pattern recognition and just seeing the underlying thing that perhaps other people are not able to see or sense, which gave us an advantage. And I quote from this book, from an evolutionary perspective, Elaine explains how the people would be relied on for their ability to observe before taking action in survival situations. Now, of course, as humanity moves forward, the sensitivity now is taking a different outlet, which is usually connected with art and with a connection with God, source, spirit, however you want to call it. So our high sensitivity allows us to keep humanity inside human beings. Because we're not able to disconnect and to feel numbness around other people's emotions or certain circumstances, then we are not able to ignore exactly what's going on. That is why the coping strategy, even though beneficial at some point, it actually drifts us further away from natural purpose of high sensitivity. Usually, high sensitivity is also tied with the black sheep kind of story, and I found this video that I would like to share with you because I really liked how it explained being the black sheep, and we're going to talk a little bit about it.
This is my favorite thing ever written about black sheep and families, and it's from Bert Hellinger. quote, "The so-called black sheep in the family are, in fact, seekers of liberation roads for the family tree. Those members of the tree who do not adapt to the rules or traditions of the family system, those who are constantly seeking to revolutionize beliefs, going in contrast to the roads marked by family traditions, those criticized, tried, and even rejected, they are called to release the tree of repetitive stories that frustrate entire generations. The black sheep, those who do not adapt, those who scream, rebel, repair, and detoxify, create a new and blooming branch. Countless unfulfilled desires, unfulfilled dreams, and frustrated talents of our ancestors manifest themselves in the black sheep's rebellion looking to take place. The family tree, by inertia, will want to continue to maintain the castrating and toxic course of its trunk, which makes the black sheep's task difficult and conflicting. Let no one make you doubt. Take care of your rarity as the most precious flower of your tree. You are the dream of all of your ancestors."
I really like this because, especially at the last part where he says to take care of your rarity, again, coming from this place where sensitivity is used to be kind of hidden, at least in this day and age, I think it's highly important that we more so take care of it in order to express its true purpose and desire to be seen in the outside world. Another super interesting thing that I find out around high sensitivity is that we really speak a different language. Sensitivity, it's meant to transmit information. However, it's not always in the same way. It's not always verbally, and it can be transmitted through, let's say, mimicking or just embodying a certain emotion for the other person to then take it in and then also feel it and mirror it back. A great example, I would say, is through music or through poetry. When we're able to see a beautiful piece of art, it's not verbal most of the time, especially if you're going to a gallery, but the emotion that you're feeling is quite clear. And usually what happens is that we're so used to getting things through the mental body just by and understanding things mentally, that we forget that there's all these other ways of communication, and high sensitive people are meant to explore all of them, and are meant to really dive into them to then be able to communicate something very specific, which is usually tied to not being numb, which is usually tied to bring back humanity into humans to the other person. I found this video that was like super beautiful to watch, and I also wanted to share it here because it really explains how, especially in music, people are able to communicate something specific so the other person can grasp it. And this connects then to the purpose, right? The purpose of high sensitivity.
But that was great. Doing more. Oh, pull. And you, as you pull, you're pulling on their heartstrings. Can you do that? Too long also. Because again, have a relationship with the silence. That's what's interesting. But if you the music stops and then there's a chord. That was great. We do it one more time. And this time, don't think about the cello as an instrument to play. Think of the cello as something to be with. Sorrow, pride, grandeur, desperation.
I really love this video, particularly at the end. You know, he could be going on and on around music, let's say, notes and whatnot, but the way that he's explaining it is not through partiture or through music reading, is through the emotion. It's a whole body language. He's standing up, he's breathing in a certain way. He's trying to communicate the emotion behind the song, the emotion behind the note. And also inviting him to visualize, pulling their hearts through that note, right? Visualizing being the instrument. That is a sensitive person. To be able to communicate in that way it comes really easily for high sensitive people. And there's truly a magic underneath that, to be able to speak in that way, to use almost all your bodies to bring down a point. So again, we speak a different language, a language of sensing. This brings me back into the way he exhales. There's a moment there where he does this exhaling. It really takes me into my own personal channeling sessions, where just using also the breath can say so much. But it's not it's how you use it and when you're using it, right? It's like all the details of this language are so particular for high sensitive people that you can, if you're highly sensitive as I am, then this is really resonating to the way you also experience life. So this brings me into part 2 of this video, where we're going to talk about the purpose really behind high sensitivity. And when I teach this class, I really love this metaphor of the tuning fork. And for those who don't know what that is, it's this metal instrument where you tap it and it creates a specific sound. Everything that's around it gets sucked in this frequency, and then we're all kind of vibing in the same wavelength. And this is how I love to explain high sensitives to other people. We are like human tuning forks going out, picking up on the dissonant frequencies and trying to bring them back into harmony. Not really out of pride or out of ego, but more so out of need. It's really a need, and it's a way of being. It's almost like we cannot help it but to try to do this for other people. So, or to at least mirror it back so they can obviously do it for themselves. There's another aspect that comes into play with high sensitivity, where we are very prone to feel both extremes of our sensitivity. We can go into really high highs of ecstasy and joy, but also on the other hand, then we can feel the big lows. It's almost like you cannot have one without the other. They come in pairs, and you cannot kind of run away from it. And although the coping trope wants to achieve this, is at the end virtually impossible, because it's just being able to sense both extremes of sensitivity, of awareness, which actually makes a lot of sense, since we know that a lot of artists suffer from deep-seated depression and anxiety, plus also getting addicted to harmful substances, because we want to numb the spectrum of feeling. You're not able to create beautiful artwork or beautiful music, or music tapping into despair, or music tapping into loneliness, if you're not able to arrive there yourself. You cannot have one without the other, and that is kind of an aspect that we need to make peace with and enter with grace. And the more we do so, and the more we own it and we set it in a specific output, right? We have a specific purpose for it, then we can create beautiful things. And not only that, but what we are creating, if it's tapping into, let's say, a despair emotion, then another person who might feel that way but cannot put it into words, when they find your art piece, or when they found you in a conversation or in a scenario, they can feel fully seen. And that is where healing can really start to unravel in the body and in the mind. I'm reading this beautiful book of Rubin, and he has a wonderful quote around it that says, "The sensitivity that allows them to make art is the same vulnerability that makes them more tender to being judged," which goes hand in hand with the more sensitive you are, then also the more receptive to feeling, let's say, ill emotions. But it is because you can feel those that you're able to even create art in the first place. So the same openness that we might avoid is the one that makes us be a channel for art, for deep conversation, for resolution, for compassion, etc. Rick Rubin is a big believer, so also myself, that every artist out there is a high sensitive person. And this brings in Emma Watson, who is, we all know her from her role in Hermione in Harry Potter, and how she recently came into a podcast with Jay Shetty on purpose, talking about sensitivities.
I think I've always felt other people's pain very intensely. Until maybe recently, I did not know how to give myself grace and navigate seeing my sensitivity as a strength and knowing that it's like my gift, but it also means I have to care for it in specific ways. When you are given gifts, there's often kind of have to compensate in some other ways. And in the same way that my position in life and fame has given me this extraordinary power, it's also given me a lot of responsibility. But I think whoever it was that was suffering in the room, I was always the most aware of them.
It comes to no surprise that Emma Watson was a humanitarian now that we see that she came out as a high sensitive person, because it's very tied. Our biggest strength is our empathy. And even though that can also go into the negative aspect of it, when we're, seeking more the well-being of the other and not looking for ourselves, I find it fascinating that when we're able to do both, then we can create real big change in the world. I recently jumped into Substack and I was able to read an essay by Trauma and Company that says, I've realized that much of this negative form of sensitivity stems from the two trenchest P's in my life: people pleasing and perfection. Put them together and you'll gradually become the kind of person that stops taking risks in order to avoid criticism, exchanging your life for perceived public approval, anticipating approval that is guaranteed to never arrive. People will brand you too sensitive to justify their cruelty. But it brings back my point that we are, even though able to see the cruelty around us, to not be numb from it and actually try to bring back that humanity that exists in all human beings by tapping in to our empathy. I also love this quote in Substack that I read from Jenny Watt, and it says, I also believe that those who are highly sensitive are acutely tapped in, whether they realize it or not, to the unseen. Tapped into the fact that we are much more than mere animals with highly developed brains. High sensitive people feel and know deeply that there is a vastness of energy and mystery to this universe that is incomprehensible. We tap into deepness. Deepness is something that comes natural for us, and that is why we're able to create poems, art, fine literature, music, etc. So to be able to wrap it up here, I want to make a special note that even though coping might work for a while, it won't not allow you to feel satisfaction. Satisfaction for high sensitive people can only be reached when we are able to hyper focus our sensitivity and to mirror it back in some type of way, so that our environment or the person or the circumstance that we're in has some sort of click, that something actually has been received by us mirroring that back. And even though all the coping mechanisms are wonderful and they're meant to support you, at the end, what really makes high sensitive people thrive is to hyper focus that sensitivity and to bring into the world something beautiful, something that allows humans to tap into their humanity, something that allows the numbness to be erased by deep feeling and resonance and just absorbing what is there and not escaping from the uncomfortable feeling or from the unmet emotion that has been snuffed down from society, from your parents, from whatever. it's a disservice for sensitive people to not tap into the full spectrum of their sensitivity, and is a disservice for humanity and society at large. I hope that if you're high sensitive, that you're able to perhaps just touch a little bit the surface of what you're able to do to really own your sensitivity and to bring out from it something beautiful. So I'll be making more of these. This is honestly my first attempt. I don't know how good it's gonna be. I'll try to give myself some grace, and I hope that you do as well. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.